There's no method. There are no practices. And the instruction is one. Just sit. Reality as it is has plenty to offer. Some days it's really challenging and tense to just sit. Some days it's really, fluid and warm and welcoming. And some days it's tears. And some days it's just complete quiet. If there were a method, it's sit down, set the timer, bow, and show up for yourself and stay the course.
Hi, I'm Derek Mills. Welcome to the Glow Podcast. This week, I am thrilled to welcome back Kia Miller as a co-host of the Glow Podcast. She interviews Elena Brower, and right away, you'll sense their close friendship and caring for each other as they talk about their experiences with meditation and yoga. They discuss how they bring fresh perspectives to their daily practices, and Elena shares her continuing journey deeper into Zen. You'll come away from their conversation with insightful strategies for integrating meditation and mindfulness into your life every day. I'll let Kia take it from here, and I hope you enjoy her conversation with Elena Brower.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be a guest host of the Glow Podcast this week, and I'm so thrilled to be here with Elena Brower. Elena is one of my favorite human beings on the planet. She is a mama. Perhaps maybe I would say for her favorite role. She's a mama. She's a yoga teacher for a very long time. She's an entrepreneur, very successful business woman. She's a builder of communities. She's a supporter of human beings in so many different methodologies and formats, whether it's her coaching program or her classes or the interactions that she has with those she meets along the path. I am just delighted to speak with you, Elena. So welcome.
Thank you so much, sister. Gosh, it's so good to see you and be with you today.
Oh, you too. And I feel like since I saw you last, your life has taken like a deep dive. I think from what I've known of you, you've had this insatiable curiosity, and you're always investigating some new aspect of life, of consciousness, of the practice of conscious living. And your latest deep dive seems to be in the realm of Buddhist meditation, Zen meditation. And I've been watching you from afar, and I've actually been longing for this very conversation. So
how wonderful is that? Yes. So I was a definite yes the moment I was asked. Like, yes, please give me an hour.
Oh,
I'll take it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, my favorite subject, I think, in life right now is the meditative process. It is this thing that for so many years for me was something I knew that I should do. But even the concept of it was so overwhelming that I think I spent 10 years thinking about meditation and being aware that it was definitely going to meet me on my path at some point, but never quite knowing how to get started. And I feel like that's probably the same for so many people. So I guess, I would ask you first, out of all the methodologies of, meditative processes, what was the spark for you with the Zen practice? How did that come about?
Thank you so much. I think 20 or so years ago, I met Roshi Jo in Halifax in New York City at some shop somewhere. She was introduced to me, and I flagged her in my consciousness because I knew that this was the real deal. I knew that this was a woman to whom I wanted to return at some point. And I just had no idea when. I lost total track of her for some years. And then I started reading her books. I was fully under the impression that Upaya Zen Center was in San Francisco for some reason. I came in contact with her in 2017 at Blue Spirit when she and I were both on a wisdom and wellness week together. Still thought she was in San Francisco somehow. Started listening to the podcast at that point, started reading all the Zen books, and became kind of a book Buddhist for a number of years. And then in 2020, when the pandemic happened and our family moved seemingly temporarily to Santa Fe, the second day we were here, I found Upaya on the side of the road driving to a hike with a friend and just started weeping. You know how that is, like, it was just really weird. And I knew that was going to be my place instantly, and started studying with them online because everything had been closed due to the pandemic. And I've written a really nice piece about it for Arrow Journal, about practicing virtually and what it means to find a full body resonance with a practice and a community, a whole sangha on the interwebs. And it was just, really surprising and beautiful. And by 2023, March, I had taken the precepts, the Buddhist precepts, really sort of walking into the stream of the teachings to the best of my ability, still making many mistakes, of course. And I'm very committed to this path, and committed to Roshi as one of my teachers, to be sure. Now I'm a candidate for chaplaincy and working in hospice a lot, and working in teaching the men who are incarcerated here in the penitentiary of New Mexico. It's just super, super beautiful, satisfying, grounded work. Yeah.
Wow, Elena, that's extraordinary. And right from, when you're ready, the practice appears. There you were all those years. It was in your field, but it wasn't time yet. And then you moved, and there it was, and you were ready.
I was just thirsty for it, especially during the pandemic too. And I started setting up my place, and I really started sitting, and I truly, deeply value my time in Zazen in a way that I never expected. It is fully now a retreat to sit. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. Describe to me a little bit, you sit, what is sort of the methodology that you follow when you sit, to enter that space you describe as being like a retreat or sacred space?
Well, there's no method. There are no practices. There's one mudra. There's the cosmic mudra. Right hand is under your left. If you'd like to do it with us now, right hand is under your left. Both palms are facing up. The hand is cradling the left hand, and the thumb tips are gently touching. You're bringing together the worldly world, the relative, and the absolute. And the instruction is one: just sit. Reality as it is has plenty to offer. Some days it's really challenging and tense to just sit. Some days it's really, fluid and warm and welcoming. And some days it's tears. And some days it's just complete quiet. Changes all the time. But the fact of coming back to it day after day and seeing who I am in it and seeing who I can be, that's the, if there were a method, it's sit down, set the timer, bow, and show up for yourself and stay the course.
Oh, it sounds so beautiful. I'm feeling, as you're speaking, I'm like sitting in a fresh spring derived river, that's that fresh water coming out of the earth, that cool coming up out of the earth, cool spring water just flowing over me, through me, as you're speaking about your sit.
Just your own internal freshness. And in fact, one of my teachers, Kazuaki Tanahashi sensei, who has translated so many books of writings of Dogen, who has really changed the face of Western Zen practice. His whole kind of theme of this year, I guess you would say, is freshness. Like, how can you bring freshness to your practice? How can you come to your practice fresh? And it reminds me, as you're talking about this, of, what is so beautiful about Japan, what is written about in haiku about the spring, this sort of capturing this moment of birth and then following it as it travels through whatever might confront it. So beautiful.
I just love that, the elemental experience. So as you've been sitting, what have you sensed about yourself that you hadn't recognized before, or maybe had such an intimate relationship with before? Is there something in particular that's, come forward for you?
Thank you. As I listen to the question and I roll it over, I feel like the one thing that comes forward is that I've been really hard on myself for a really long time. I don't need to do that anymore. My kid is graduating high school. There's a sense of both relief and also grief, that he's leaving. But I'm so happy for him that the happiness and sort of excitement for him overshadows the grief. But there's still like a pretty significant sadness that I won't have him in my sphere on the daily basis that we have had all this time, 17 years. Yeah. Wow. And I would say also that there's a climate inside of me that is very steady. And I dare say it's existing within each of us. Were we but to sit down and stop the train. And it's hard to do. It's hard if you have small kids. It's hard if you have a very hectic work schedule. It's hard if you're doing 2 or more jobs. These are real circumstances. And in that case, the practice is wherever you find yourself in the moment, how can I be present to this reality as it is right now? How can I, fully accept the fact that this is really hard, or this is really joyful, or this is really not what I thought it was going to be? All these sort of circumstances are the practice also.
Absolutely. I love you're bringing it to, the everyday experience of life. Because I feel like most people I speak to, they want the time, they know that there's something to be gotten from the stillness. I mean, not that this is an extractive, process. We're doing something to get something out of it. We're doing something just to do it, to be it. And I really get that. And so to be able to just be in your doing of your life, to find the grace of that. For me, that's where the yogic practices have been so powerful, because I think I spent the first 20 years of my life, maybe not the first, but maybe the second 10 years, pretty dissociated. And so getting into the body and feeling at home and safe and present, and then being able to use that as the anchor for the now. I think it's much of what I've experienced in your classes. You have a way of drawing one to the space of stillness within the yoga poses. So I feel like that's a part of this picture as well, right?
Yeah, I think most of the there is this tendency that we all have of saying, what can I get here? What can I learn? What can I take here? I totally resonate with that. And what ends up being true is that every time we sit, we touch into that little stillness, that very steady attitude that also feels very spacious. And that becomes what we bring to everything. And that's sort of where, if you were to ask any one of my teachers, it's really about bodhicitta and how are we acting in alignment with our bodhisattva nature? How are we, being generous in this moment with our energy and our time and our resources and our understandings? And that's kind of where it lands for me most squarely.
Describe the words bodhicitta and bodhisattva, the meaning of those in this context.
This element of giving without expectation, of presencing when things are extraordinarily challenging. I'm working with a woman right now who's 60, who is actively designing her death in the coming weeks. She's in a great deal of pain with a stage 4 diagnosis that is untreatable and is showing up in a way that is so beautiful. And all I have to give her is this nature of the bodhisattva within me. This is all I've got to offer her. The kindness, the care, and the deep well of gratitude that she's even trusting me at all with any part of this. It just has to be about that. It has to be about giving without expectation, about offering the best of your consciousness and care in any situation.
It's so beautiful. And I feel like, us as humanity, we all give each other such a bad rap right now because, of what's happening in the world. And yet over and over again, when I'm traveling, I meet people who really want to do that. They want to give their best in the moment. They want to show up and support people. There is an element of gratitude there. There is a recognition of the challenge of the human condition. And so I love that you spoke to that. Wow, that's it. If that is the practice that you do in your life, your ascension or your growth is going to really be a beautiful journey. I think it's really interesting, Zen, because in the yoga tradition, in the tantric tradition that I'm very much a part of, there's complexity. Because in their great study, the tantric masters, female and male, really explored the nature of consciousness, the nature of life, or maybe even better put, the nature of manifest reality. And so there's names for every facet of, the expression of what is ultimately oneness. And it's a complex and beautiful science. And then there's this idea of Zen and this, blossoming of heart consciousness. What would you say is at the heart of the Zen practice in this context? So
as you know, India is where all of this began many thousands of years ago. That's the source of all of this. And with very deep bows, then Bodhidharma moves to the West and we get to China. We have the Tao. We have Confucianism. I'm really simplifying this. And we have certain teachers who give rise in their studies and their understandings to what is called Chan. Chan is just dhyana in Chinese. And Chan, exploring from Japan, come a few seminal teachers to China who work with Chinese teachers. There's a beautiful feminine component that comes into play from this, seemingly very masculine vantage point. And Zen becomes a reality in the early, 1000s, 1100s, even sooner than that. Really, Chan is 500, 600, 700. And by the time it gets to Japan and takes on all of these sort of Japanese flavors and rigor and appreciation and simplicity and care, it becomes Zen. And whether you resonate, as I did, with the Tantric teachings, the Sri Vidya teachings initially, or with Chinese Chan or the Tao or Confucianism, there's some really great teachers like David Hinton and Andy Ferguson who write about Chan in ways that I really hear. Or you find Zen through Dogen, who was in the 1200s. He was born in 1200 and ordained at 13, lost his parents, and then went to China to study, found Rajing, came back to Japan, and died when he was 53 years old with a tremendous body of work that is still nourishing all of us now. That's kind of that's the trail that one could follow. And I'm sure that I'm screwing at least two statements up here with regards to the years and so forth, but that's my understanding as of right now, limited though it may be. What I find with Zen for myself is at this season of my life, the simplicity of the instruction, the lack really of instruction. For many months, I walked into the Zendo. There's no instruction. You're just to observe carefully and follow along. The same in Japan itself. There is no real meditation instruction. It's not even called meditation. It's Zazen. And it's your work is really just to let go and drop things off, including your mind, including your thoughts, including all the narratives that you have about what's possible and not possible. And just be with yourself and learn how to befriend what's here. And for me, this has provided such a comfort in several different real serious transitions of my life. And I'm so thankful for this manifestation of the teachings, as thankful as I was in the year 2000 when I took my first philosophy intensive with Dr. Douglas Brooks, who is still teaching today, with whom I still study.
Yeah, such a deep well, such a deep reservoir. Wow. Yeah. I feel, as you're speaking, I feel that like softness and resonance in your being that comes, when you sit with yourself, like the analogy of the pond that's stirred with all the different fluctuations and intensity of, mind associations and emotions and things that we're hooked into. And then the clarity as all of that settles. I think what I've noticed a lot for myself and when I speak to people as well is the process of learning. I guess we could call it Pratipaksha Bhavana from the, sutra tradition, the process of cognizing something that is negative or potentially hurtful or was rooted in some level of violence, some thought that one wants to shift away from, and learning how to do the decoupling process and then refocusing in a way that feels nurturing versus being caught in the angst of whatever is churning. Can you share a little bit about what does your process look like when you are caught in one of those churnings?
I think one of the best instructions I've received that wasn't really a meditation instruction, but it would come in various different forms and various different Dharma talks, is to let the contents of the mind sort of drop. And if you are a visual person and you're listening and you need a visual, you can let the thoughts drop into that left hand on the top of your mudra. You can just let them drop away, as is said in many of the texts. But it's very much a subtractive process rather than an additive process. And by dropping away, I mean literally just setting it down. It will be there if it needs to be, and it comes back repeatedly. But for now, I can just set it down. For me, that process has grown into a level of compassion for myself, recognition of my humanity, a level of kindness with myself that I had never known before. And it's such a simple thing. Wow, there's that thought again. Oh my goodness. Let it drop. And what's behind it is vast space and nothing to do.
Wow. So beautiful. So profound. I just love that. I love that. And I feel the space of emptiness opened just through that. Because the reactive mind, the programmed mind, the self-righteous self, the one who wants to be right about something, the doubting mind, like all these facets can be so noisy in one's mind. And so being able to drop it, just drop it.
In a kind way, not in like a, that word sometimes I've heard it in some arguments or, drop it already. And it's like, no, it's not like that. I just want to be clear with our listener. It's more of like, allow that to gently settle like sediment for now. Let's see if it's still around when the bell rings, when the end comes of this sitting. Let's see what's there.
Oh, I love that distinction. I love it so much. I love it so much. The gentleness of that. Yes, because I think part of the violence that we've learned is the pushing it away. No, don't want that. Don't want that. And that in itself being like an act of violence as opposed to the just dropping. Oh, I love that. I mean, that's an extraordinary practice.
and also just the simplest thing, like.
Right? Exactly. The simplest thing. I've done some long sadhanas in these last couple of years, really choosing to confront myself. Maybe that even now in the languaging and the space you've opened, it's like, oh, really? Is it confront myself, or is it just allow myself the time to thoroughly be and allow those tendencies that are rooted in self-righteousness or ego or past hurt or trauma, just to allow those an opportunity to reveal themselves. And I've had some extraordinary moments of recognizing how much we as human beings, create disturbance in the field, in the lives of others, because we make our business, we make it about somebody else, as opposed to the ownership of, wait, I'm really annoyed by this person right now. And my ego is saying, if they would just change, if they would do this, if they would do that, then everything would be okay, versus, okay, how do I need to change so that I can let go of the angst? Can you talk a little about that process if you ever find that one?
Sure. Thank you. I think the best way to look at this would be where my default setting is now just nonviolent communication. So nobody does anything to me. This person doesn't make me feel this way. Nonviolent communication, the first step is just an observation when I see that happening. Second step, a feeling. I feel frustrated, afraid, scared, flummoxed, exasperated, whatever the feeling is. Third step, a need that isn't being met because my need for order, kindness, mutuality, respect, calm is not being met. And if I'm taking myself through that process, particularly in meditation, if the situation arises and I need to work something out in my consciousness, the fourth step, instead of some request that I would make if it were an interaction, is just how human of me to feel this way right now. It's all human. It's a level of acknowledgement of one's humanity and one's truth. It's just how I feel right now. It's very human of me. And upon doing that, I always find the same hilarious conclusion, which is, yeah, that's fine. It's passing. Because I have acknowledged myself, which is all I was seeking. Perhaps from the person or the situation, I was just seeking some sort of acknowledgement. And the truth is, I almost never need somebody else to acknowledge my feelings anymore. It's just a feeling that's passing, even with James or my kid. It's wow. When you said that, I felt this way. My need for this was not met. How human of me to feel this way. And I'm saying this all to myself. And by the time I get all the way to how human of me, the thing has passed us both by. If it's something that returns, I will make a request, of course. Could you possibly say that in a more kind way? Or, I don't know, could we move a little more slowly when the situation arises again, so that both of us feel comfortable? It's so easy to work with people in this way. And the only thing that would block nonviolent communication with another person is some kind of mental imbalance, which I totally acknowledge is present in the field often. But with ourselves, it's a very straightforward practice of acknowledging how human we are and how it must feel to have that experience, and allow that feeling to sort of drop, pass through, however you visualize it, until you're back to a vast and spacious level of care for yourself that will then return and infuse generously all of the rest of your interactions in that time, that day, whatever it is.
Oh my gosh, there's so much that just flowered and opened for me as you were talking. And so there's many different directions I could go, but the last one that just revealed to me as you were speaking was the tendency that so many on a spiritual path can have to have an image of themselves as, needing to be perfect. And therefore, a denial of the aspects of self that aren't what they deem to be yogic or spiritual or any of those things. And so the very thing that they're seeking becomes so elusive. Can you speak to that a little from your perspective?
One thing that is a constant kind of feature in my awareness as I'm moving through the world, especially now as a candidate for chaplaincy and sort of offering my heart to so many different humans and situations. I mentioned it earlier, where it's just never going to be perfect. And at some point, we get old enough to recognize that that's perfectly fine. And my best effort is perfectly fine. But now everybody has to live their lives. Everybody has a spirit and a mission, and I can't know what it is, and I can't control any of it. I can only control my sort of inward climate, my inward attitude toward it. That's the best I can do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for just that beautiful reflection. It's, that's it. And I think the humanness of it, because again, we're in this world where we will project perfection onto somebody else. And then we'll compare ourselves against that idea of perfection. And then we'll hold them in a way that doesn't allow for their humanity and their humanness. And so I think as a leader, to be able to show one's humanity fearlessly, doesn't have to be messy, but just honest.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of that equation, having been the source, being the projected upon, let's say. Neither is very pleasant, and both are, I think, necessary experiences to have if one is to be a teacher of anything, facilitator of anything in any way. Just like grief is necessary to walk people through grief, we have to have all of this range of experiences in order to be able to serve in a way that will be useful.
Gosh, I love that. The reflection of the wounded healer. Well, if I just have to look at myself and, my desire to serve in the way that I do and how it's rooted in my own life experience. Mm-hmm. And for you and for my husband, Tommy, as well, just, the depths of one's own personal experience and the capacity to transform and transmute, and the level of self-authority and just self-knowing, maybe better put, that comes with that you can share and transmit to others because you've been there and you've done that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With regards to practice, I don't think I can hold anything or grasp onto anything. And if Zazen has taught me anything, it's just, practice walking and sitting so that you can be prepared for that feeling of that little that tug at your heart when something feels awry or out of control, and because you sat or did your walking meditation or some combination of the two, what that tug feels like. It's not unfamiliar. It does not require some sort of giant action or reaction. It requires presence. And that's all we can do.
That's all we can do. Absolutely. Yeah. I love, Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza and so many of these sort of evolutionary beings that speak to the emergent property of consciousness that comes forth when we are allowing ourselves to be present, resourced in the present to the miracle of life.
And also to the horror.
To the horror.
So much of it at this juncture or at any juncture in history, but to be able to just be with it without being like swung in 1,000 different directions. That's something you're offering to humanity at large, your steadiness, that's a real gift.
It is. And I've often felt, for myself at least, that in itself is the greatest act of love that I can do for myself and for, the numberless causes that are happening out in the world right now. As somebody who used to lie in front of tanks and, rally outside of, nuclear bomb facilities, I really did come to realize that the highest form of activism for me, just for me, highest form of activism is that, to hold that space.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a real serious moment. And I think the priority for me is just being a student of my mind, knowing when to let it get very, very quiet and when to let things go. And what can I do? Like on a very, very local level, very, very close to home. Much less interested in, business and success at this point, and much more interested in how I can help people in very small, meaningful, pointed, focused ways, and be as creative as possible in doing so.
I love that. That feels so nurturing, even in the concept of it. I think so often when we want to help, we jump to the biggest things that inevitably create more stress and disturbance in our field. And so the energy that we're engaging in that thing where we're trying to serve has energy of disturbance and angst to it. And so we're adding to the disturbance and angst versus what we really want to do, which is to help and serve. So
it would be nice if you could teach a class on this, where I love teaching with you, but it would be like a combined, the title would be something like Clear the Field or Quiet the Field or something like that.
I love it.
So nice.
I love it.
Remember the days when the Glow Studio was there and we could just teach together?
I loved that. Those moments. Oh my gosh. I have so many fond memories of this journey with Glow that we've both been on for so long.
Same. Such a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to your note of earlier, speaking about tuning to Zazen, to the practices through the internet. Yeah. I have found myself since COVID too, just the potency of what comes through. Because in the quantum realm where we are all connected, so in that understanding of reality, there being no separation and it not mattering where somebody is in the world, where the connection is the same. I mean, it's been profound for me, that feeling.
Do you often or ever get approached by people who have been taking your classes who are just thankful for you?
Yes.
Because I get approached by people thanking me for you as well. People say, "Oh my God, I love your classes so much on Glow," and you know who I practice with also? It's just you and Kia. And a number of people have said this over the years, like a significant number of people have said this, and it always makes my heart happy to hear that we're in the same boat for folks.
I love that too. I really do. I just love that. And I'm feeling such a beautiful balance here. I've been meditating on this myself lately. The potency of the Kundalini practices to churn the field, to churn everything. Because when you churn something, delightful things are going to arise, or much, and also the challenging things, much like that Vedic story of churning the milk and the poison rising to the surface and Shiva taking that poison into his throat to purify. And then, Saraswati and Lakshmi and all the gems starting to arise from the field. But first it has to be churned. First we must churn. And so I've been reflecting on that lately, with some of the intensity of the Kundalini practices and how much churning happens, and then the necessity of the quiet and the still, to be able to sort through that which has churned, so that it doesn't just settle back down again, undiscovered.
Beautiful, beautifully said. I think for me, I think there's a place for everything that I've ever touched into, and I've touched into all of it, including Kundalini, very actively back in New York and in your classes. I think there's space for all of these practices, and at certain seasons of one's life, at certain times, certain ages, certain things are more appropriate or less appropriate. And it's nice to constantly be in the discovery of what is serving now,
It is, isn't it? And I feel like as teachers, we get to serve up what's delighting us in the moment.
Yeah.
And so it's an ever evolving journey. For sure, what delighted me 10 years ago is different than what delights me now. And so I always feel so honored to be able to share up from that space and to see who that resonates with.
That's a very good point. And at every phase, it's different. It's interesting to see how the students that are practicing with me are, some just mostly similar in age, but some younger, some older, and we're all just growing up together.
Yes.
That's all that's happening here, figuring it out together,
Exactly. That's exactly it. I feel like that when I go to yoga conferences now and I run into, people and it's just so clear. Oh, here we all are, and we're still growing and expanding, and the picture's getting brighter and bigger, and there's tragedies and there's losses and there's joys and there's gains, and here we are as this global community.
Yeah. As you say that, I found myself thinking, actually, my picture is not getting bigger. I don't know. I don't even know if it's getting brighter. I think my picture is actually getting smaller and more sort of folding in. I just had to name that.
I love that. And I have to say, I think that if you left me to my own devices, that's pretty much would be it now. And a forever folding in.
Yeah.
Yes.
It feels like setting a good example for other women too, to have the comfort of one's own heart, mind, space, still learning, still sitting, still giving in some way, and still definitely receiving, but very comfortable in here.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Elena. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel you. I feel that space that you're holding, and it feels really spacious and kind. And I think if there's one thing I'm coming away with, because I can also be hard on myself, is that depth of kindness, self-compassion, the spaciousness, being able to just be in that. It feels so, it's not effortless because there's this level of effort, but there's so much grace in it. I almost feel as I'm talking, it's very water-based for me today, but just, hanging out there in the turquoise ocean, and you've got all the delights of the ocean swimming around you. There may be an occasional shark, but you're just hanging out there watching it all and being.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Allowing yourself to be moved.
Yeah.
Without moving at all inside.
Beautiful.
Really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all of your wonderful questions and your very spacious feeling to me as well. There's a limitlessness to your words and your energy right now that feels really nourishing to me and full of possibility.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And a little shout out and thank you to Derek too for holding this space and that we could come together in this way and have this level of conversation in this sphere. I'm so grateful.
And may all beings, whoever listens to this, benefit from some part of this exchange. And may the near future see the four of us together, or even the six of us together, Derek and Lisa, maybe even the seven.
Yes.
Beautiful child. I would love to be able to see you soon, I hope.
Yes, likewise, Elena. So much love to you. Thank you.
Thank you to our entire team behind the scenes at Glow. I'm so grateful for your care and commitment to serving our members around the world. Thank you to our teachers for so beautifully sharing your gifts and talents. I'm also grateful to our lovely community of Glow members. You've supported us since 2008, and because of you, we get to continue to do the work we love. It's the combined support of our team, our teachers, and our community that grants me the privilege to continue to bring you the Glow podcast. Thank you to Lee Schneider at Red Cove Agency for production support, and the beautiful music you're hearing now is by Carrie Rodriguez and her husband Luke Jacobs. And remember, take care of yourself because our world needs you. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. You can find the Glow podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or glo.com/podcast, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm Derek Mills.